As Carlo de Kock, I'm responsible for the clearing program in SANParks. I'm going to talk today a little bit about whether it's the Garden Route National Park or it's split into parks. I won't get into that, Victor. But basically, the Garden Route, the park consists of about 160,000 hectares. That includes the marine section of the park and the lake systems. It basically stretches from Sarsveld, the MNMU campus, all the way through past Storms River Village. Everything in green that you see there is this park. I'll talk a bit about the programs that we implement. All our funding comes through the department, the Working for Water programs. I'll mention a couple of challenges that we have in the program, what we've done to date, and a general overview. So currently we've got 11 Working for Water programs in the region. We've got a Garden Route EDRR program. It's not really in true sense early detection, but it's more species-specific focus, and I'll touch on some of those species-specific. Then 2 projects in Farley, close to Karatara, Goutveld section, 2 projects there, Gona and Neisner, around the Neisner area, Soetkrol, Keerboom, Storms River, and Blaukrans in the Tsitsikamma section. Each of these sections then have a dedicated project team, project manager, depending on the size, support staff, administrative staff, field staff, and then a group of contractors or SMMEs, and a dedicated budget. So it's quite a vast area that needs to be covered, isolated areas, difficult terrain. So lots of challenges, but I'll talk a bit about the successes as well. Basically, what our strategy is that's dictated to by vegetation type, and in a lot of cases felt age as well. The aim is to do all the riparian areas in a 2-year cycle. And again, this is the strategy. Whether we achieve this is a different story, because it comes with all its unique challenges. If alien clearing wasn't easy, we wouldn't be here today chatting about all these things. Fynbos is done on a 4-year cycle. The rationale behind that is following the seeding cycle and the age class of the plants. Pines tend to set seed 4 to 5 years. You want to catch it before it sets seed. And obviously that changes if there's a fire in the area. Fire creates an opportunity. It's easier access, a lot of areas open up, and then the rotation is a lot sooner. And it's also a bit out of the norm for a lot of the fynbos areas, but it's due to the scale that we have to deal with. I worked a lot in Table Mountain National Park there, and there we do a 6-month rotation on similar species. But the scale here makes it impossible to, we won't have enough money, and money is not really the issue. It's capacity, it's access, and all of those things that makes it very challenging. And then forested areas tend to be very low densities. It's mainly your blackwood species. They're on a longer rotation. So that's the rationale that we try and follow. So we've got a clear plan of what we want to do every year. What do we want to do in the next 5 years? Whether we achieve that is the challenge. And unfortunately, things like the COVID year had a major impact on the program. Budget was cut by 75% nationally for SANParks for our island clearing program, and that's massive. It was closely after the fire, getting into that 2-year cycle after the fire, being on top of the follow-ups that you need to be. Now you've got a year of COVID, and I'll show you some of those pictures. I don't want to say lost areas, but it's a lot more difficult. It's changed from a foliar application where you can do a lot of hectares in a short space of time to now it's a more manual approach. It's loppers, it's chainsaws, and that's got major cost implications as well. Some of the species that we deal with, it might sound silly, but the type of clearing that we do is relatively easy. We're dealing with predominantly pine in the mountain catchment areas, and to clear pine is easy, but to get to the pine is the challenge for us, and the vastness. And I'll go that area there. This is in the Louterwater section, opposite side of the mountain in the Soetkrol area. That's an area that we cleared 2 years back. I'm standing on the closest access road to the site. It's about 2 to 3 hour walk to get there. So once you're there, you can fell those pines quite easily, but to get there is the challenge. It means people have to camp, setting up camps. If you ever had to manage a group of 40 people camping in the middle of nowhere, you'll understand the challenges that we need to deal with. So yeah, clearing the area is not the issue. It's the logistics behind it, the capacity to manage it. Then a lot of, obviously, all your wattle species. This is a good example. If you look carefully there, you'll see there's the project manager standing in the wattle. This is the area that burned. It wasn't cleared soon enough after the burn, and that's the challenge that you sit with now. A bit of blackwood, a lot of eucalyptus, and it's mainly associated with old plantation areas that was handed back to the park that now forms under the park management. Bit of hackia, yeah. So not a lot of, and then obviously we've got all these. I wouldn't say new, but not common species that we deal with on a regular basis, and this is where our EDR program comes in. This is Australian tree fern in the forest. There you can see there's one there, there's one in the foreground. So we've got these species also, and that's the aim of the EDR program, is to focus on those specific species. Bit of lantana in the lake systems around wilderness, and all these odds and ends species. If you walk some of the trails, for instance, around wilderness, you'll see there's a puntia there. So it's to try and target those ones that are outside the norm. We've got a dedicated program focusing on Madeira vine specifically that we've had relative success with. It's a very difficult species to clear. It reproduces vegetatively. It's got all these nodules on it. Tends to climb into the canopy. You pull it out of the canopy, the nodules stay behind. It keeps on growing. We've defined the techniques, and we found that removing it manually, double bagging it, let it convert into compost, and we're using it now in our nursery to replant indigenous trees in that compost is most effective. But we're dealing with masses of large volumes of biomass, on average between 1 to 2 tons a year that's removed in Madeira vine, which is quite a lot. And but it also depends on the terrain that it's in, the vegetation. There's options to spray it. We've been involved in some biocontrol releases as well. So it's really dictated to by the area that it grows in. But relative success, there you can see this is our nursery in wilderness where we've replanted yellowwoods in what we call Madeira vine soil. It is also because it's in a bag, it's confined. So if there is resprouting, you can control it because you'll pick it up quite quickly. Okay. So what have we done? So the green area is the national park and the project boundaries. The areas in red is what we've cleared in the last 5 to 6 years. Through the department, spent 132 million rand doing alien clearing, which sounds a lot, but it is actually not. Completed 40,000 hectares. So if you work that back to the size of the park, terrestrial is about 120,000 hectares. That's actually not a lot. And you can see we haven't even touched these areas in the back because there's no roads. There's limited access. It's very difficult terrain to clear. On average, we employ about 60 teams per year, so it's about 600 people, a little bit more. That tends to fluctuate a little bit. Probably a pool of 80 contractors a year. What are the challenges? I've mentioned terrain a couple of times, and the fire, although it had very negative impacts on the social side, it was a major opportunity for us to get on top of or make a real impact from an alien clearing point of view. So we're constantly chasing that fire scar to try and keep up with that opportunity that was created in certain areas. If you're familiar with the Farley section, there we've had definite successes where you can see a drastic impact on the reduction of density. In other areas, not so much. But that's really the aim, is to to try and keep on top of that opportunity that is created by fire, that's doing the clearing for you. Typically, that's what you find. So this used to be mature eucalyptus. After the burn, there's re-sprouting. It's a lot cheaper to do, not as labor intensive from a chainsaw perspective. Cost comes down, more hectares get cleared. But if you miss that, it's back to chainsaw, higher risk, higher cost. Roads in general is a challenge, keeping up with maintenance on these roads, because they're not used as frequently anymore. Remoteness, as I mentioned, especially on the Titicaca side of things, it's really in the middle of nowhere. There's only one road in, one road out, and no footpaths, and that in itself creates major challenges. SMMEs, although there's a large unemployment figure throughout the country and in this region, finding contractors are not that easy because of the requirements. It sounds easy, you just advertise, you get a contractor, but there's certain skills and items that contractor requires. And our project managers need to develop contracts, manage finances, do alien clearing, and not all of them are skilled in all those aspects. But finding a contractor with a reliable vehicle is the major stumbling block. If a contractor doesn't have a vehicle, it's very difficult. And I've been in the program for many years, renting, trying to assist them in buying, it's a headache. So to find a way around that is a major challenge. And we've done some innovative ideas. We've done contract development programs, put people through the system for them to become contractor. But again, you need someone to drive that process. You need capacity, and you need time and money. And time is the biggest factor. Management capacity, people tend to leave quite often. We're on a contract basis. Finding good staff, I'm sure, as everyone can attest, if you don't have good staff, it makes life complicated. Not that I have bad staff, none of them are here in any way. So, but finding people that are willing to go into those isolated areas and stay there for 2 days with limited resources is few and far between. And then the program's requirements. It seems like every year it's becoming more and more difficult. I mean, Vessel's presentation where he showed how many service providers there was in this year and now what the number of service providers are. If you have to manage this program, you'll understand the administrative load that there is. Half of the staff spend most of their time stamping IDs, taking pictures of people for the database, because you need to prove how many person days you've produced. That's the reality that we deal with. If you want the money, that's the requirement, but it doesn't make it easy. And then Debbie's presentation on all the herbicide requirements and going through that process and the health and safety aspects. And then on top of it, all the COVID regulations that you have at the moment. And I'm not trying to make any excuses, but that's the reality. It's not an easy program to deal with. I was a project manager in Table Mountain. I used to go and do a final inspection. I had a little A3 book. I signed a final inspection. I drive to Westlake, hand it in on a Monday, Wednesday they get paid. Those days are long gone. It's an administrative heavy program. There's reasoning behind it as to try and close those loops, but it doesn't make it easy. And I think the positives, there's definite areas where we've made major impacts, areas that we've cleared that hasn't been cleared in a while. So you can see that's that copy over there. It's not a good picture, but all those pines are gone. I was there last week. All the seedlings are coming up now again. But it's then where reality is you marry to these aliens. You can't leave them. You have to stay on top of the problem constantly. If you drop that one rotation, you're back to square one. And that's very true on species like Madeira vine as well, where we do a 6-month rotation. If you miss your 6 months, dan jy nie moeilikheid, dan moet jy maar van voor af weer begin. So it's really important. Yeah, there you can see, I had this picture on earlier on as well, all of those pines. I think that's the sad thing about the alien clearing program. You don't always, I'm involved in rehab as well, and in rehab you can definitely see the impact. But if you walk there today in these areas, you wouldn't know those pines are there. How are we recording those successes? How are we putting those successes on the table? That's success stories are few and far between, is to really highlight what we've done and the good that we've done as well. Yeah, and I think that's the aim of the program. If you stay in the garden route and you haven't seen a yellow T-shirt walking around, you're not driving enough, because we're a big employer in the area. If you go to Touwsrand and if you haven't been employed by working for in Touwsrand, and you haven't stayed there long enough, and that's the reality. We're a major source of employment, making a big impact on people's lives, and through that process also doing quite a lot of good in the form of veiling clearing. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carlo. I love that term that you just said. You married to the alley invasives. It's the first time I've ever heard that, and there's nothing more than the truth. It's a bit of a love-hate relationship. Unhappily married. Do we have any questions for Carlo? Okay, the lady on the left-hand side.
Hi, I'm Kate Southey from the Nyasa municipality. I work under Pam. I just do whatever she tells me to do. Thanks, Carlo. That was really interesting. I have two questions because Pam said I must make you talk for longer. Firstly, what do you guys do for bugweed? I'm interested to know. And secondly, Marietta has mentioned in passing something about an aerial team, or I don't know if it's a high angle or
high altitude.
High altitude. Sorry. Because it sounds very exciting, so if you can tell us more about that, if I got the right end of the stick.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that we do have a working on high altitude program as well. There's like 4 teams in the entire national park. So the work that they're doing is good, but the impact that they're having is minimal. We are looking at getting the helihack group involved in addressing some of those areas that are inaccessible, but we talked a lot about red tape, making things like that happen. I'm standing in a box, and getting out of that box to do things that are out of the ordinary is very difficult in state departments or parastatals, and the money is there to do it, but to get it through the system is a corpse here. But basically, it's a group of volunteers, experts in the field. It's foresters, it's pilots, doctors, highly skilled people that they had flown into specific spots by helicopter. They're hanging underneath it on a sling, dropped at the spot, cut down a tree, get picked up, move to the next spot, cut down the next tree. So they're covering quite a vast area, low densities in a small space of time at a very high cost. But that cost can be mitigated with the impact that you get overall. So yeah, whether we'll make it happen, we'll see. But it's a cool idea. It's want to make it happen, but get out of the box is the challenge. What was the other question? Bugweed.
Yeah. Splash. So
what do we do with bugweed? We cut it down. We apply the appropriate herbicide. It's not a major problem. We do see it in forest margins. It also tends to disappear over time. It gets shaded out, and then it disappears. There is biocontrol on them as well. We're not doing in the park. We're not doing any active biocontrol releases. A lot of the species that we deal with, the biocontrol agents are there already, and they do their thing. But yeah, we do active clearing on it. We don't have a dedicated program focusing on bugweed. Similar with Acacia stricta, it's also come up quite a lot after the fires. It's part of that EDR program, but if it's part of our planning in those areas that we've identified, we're going to clear it. Whether it's an emerging species or a new species, we'll address it.
I always find it really interesting that when we talk about the success of invasive alien plant clearing, we said we've cleared 40,000 hectares. So what? What I want to know is how much biodiversity you've protected or conserved as a result of that action. And this is what donors are looking for. And this is what donors are loath to fund it, because just saying I've cleared 40,000 hectares is meaningless.
Yeah.
What is the benefit of that? And this is one area we fall flat in with regard to invasive alien species management. This government has spent billions of rands on clearing invasives, cleared thousands and thousands of hectares, but you ask for data on the benefits of that clearing. Yes, we've done work on water, we know that, but in terms of biodiversity conservation, there's very little data. And we really need to do more in being able to demonstrate, well, I've cleared 50 hectares in that catchment. This has been the benefit.
I fully agree, because the currency that we're dealing with is those figures that we put on the table. Our success gets measured in the amount of money that we spend and the hectares that we cleared. What are the impact? And from our perspective as an implementer, we don't really know. That's where scientific services and SANParks needs to come to the table, and people like you guys to look at those specific studies. It's
Okay.
something that needs to be flagged, yeah.
Great. We had a question. There we go, sir.
Just on the Madeira vine, your biocontrol agents, has it been successful?
Yeah, ARC is driving the process. We've assisted in some releases. I'm speaking under correction, but I think it's a leaf-eating weevil. So concerns with the long-term impact of what the biocontrol has been. But the release sites that we have released on showed very little success. But it's, my understanding, still in the early stages of research. But at this stage, it's not showing great signs of being very successful.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Also, Debbie?
I think it's more Cape Nature, but I just want to mention Dr. Donovan Kotzer lives in Ladysmith, and he has this program where they do alien hacks as a trail running exercise. So you run up the mountain and you cut hakia, which is easily cut, and they log, what they cut, and they've got this program together with Cape Nature, so they will go where there's access and those kind of things, work together with Working for Water. And there's a rollout now, Mountain Club of South Africa, they're also involved in that. So I just thought it's
Informative. Absolutely.
Informative for the rest of the community to know about that, because these are things that where the community can get involved.
It sounds like a health and fitness club. Run up the mountain, cut some trees down, bring them back down again.
Yeah, they say it's, instead of mountain biking, they say this is like trail running for greenies.
Brilliant. We have a question.
Ja, I'm Anneliese Vlok from Cape Nature. Ja, excellent, dankie Carlo. I agree with Sandra, we need volunteer hacking teams. I think that's the only way, because some of these sites are identified as too steep to get into, but we can actually walk there, and volunteers will walk there. They're not afraid of that. But I wanted to know about the 80 people, 80 contractors that you mentioned. Am I correct? Is that for your whole park?
Yes.
Yes, it is baie. I wish we had that. But yeah, I just wanted clarity. Thank you.
Just a comment on the hack group. I've been involved in one or two in the Capes. The key with those is they need to be organized. In Table Mountain National Park, you've got all these rogue groups that go and hack everywhere, but it needs to be structured, well organized, then they can have a major impact. And that's in essence what that Heli hack group is. It's a group of volunteers offering their services, and it's well coordinated.
Fantastic. Debbie?
I'm sorry, just to defend the biocontrol, it's a leaf chewer, and it is in the early stages.
Yet and go, Saladin.
Yes, and it's actually more, it does better on the plateau, so up in the Joburg area, not so well down in the coastal areas. So we're just trying to see whether it's actually going to establish in the coastal areas. That's why it's not doing so well down here. But there is 2 other biocontrol agents for Madeira that's in the pipeline as well. So just bait fast, hang in there. Hopefully one of the other 2 might be more successful for the coastal areas. Thanks.
Fantastic.
Yeah, interesting is that even though it's a very dynamic species and we've managed to control it, and in some areas definitely eradicate it locally. On the Volva Rivier Trail, there's been isolated spots where it's occurred. Through constant follow-up, it's gone. It's not there anymore. So you can be successful, but it's really dependent in the type of environment that it grows, how the wetter it is, it tends to spread a lot faster as well.
With your EDRR program, what categories do you cover?
With regards to the plants, I think it was probably a bit of marketing from our side, labeling it an EDRR project. In true essence, it's not really an EDRR project. It's a species-specific approach where you have a dedicated team, irrespective of what the category is. As we've got teams that are focusing on specific species and not doing the standard pine, hakia, the normal stuff. It's to target those ones that we see on a regular basis, irrespective of what the category is.
Okay, I'm asking because in Cape Town we partner with the city of Cape Town, and then any species they have an EDRR unit. So any species that is 1A, because some areas we cannot get to,
Yes.
and it's their areas. So we have this partnership where we train them on how to manage 1A and collect data and all of that, all the research that goes into it, and they report back to us. So it's our species, but they do it on our behalf. And we've done that with SANParks on Devil's Peak and Table Mountain
Yes, on
through
the
the Tokai
Paradoxa.
office. So
Yeah.
I wanted to find out in this side of the Cape
Yeah,
whether you do it.
there was a dedicated program from Sanby side on Stricta.
That one, yeah. But I want to hand it over if I can. So
We've
that's why I'm
already
interested.
taken it, but that's included.
Yeah, I know I've spoken to class in
Yeah.
Deep Valley, and they were going to bid for that, but I didn't see anything from
No,
them.
at the moment we're including Stricta on our normal operation. So where it is, we'll clear it.
There we go.
I'll speak to you about the
Yeah,
data.
I think you guys need to get together over a
Okay.
good cold beer afterwards and discuss that one. Carlo, thank you very much. I think that was extremely informative and good luck, and you guys are doing excellent work.